Go to the pledge of allegiance. Call meetings call to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We talked a little bit about public comment and Alex said it's sort of a thing here that we have a chance to comment at the very beginning. So if you have anything to bring to the attention, I guess now is the time to do it. But we're going to have a chance for you to comment throughout the agenda and then have the closing public comment. So you'll have plenty of time, plenty of chances to talk. But I guess it would be good if you brought up anything you think we should consider. And if not, anybody have anything? I wasn't prepared.
Yeah, I think that was also just if somebody has to leave early and they don't want to wait until like number 9, it would also help for folks that have like something not related to the agenda. That's just that I think, I don't know, it's up to the council if they think they want to continue to have the public comment up here number 3 too, right? Because yeah,
I think it's a good idea. Does everybody agree that that's?
I
Okay.
think it would be great to know why people
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
spend their time here and, you know.
Well, and if there is an
If you
issue,
can,
then
you
look,
can address that from the standpoint of the way the meeting goes.
and if there is an issue related to what we're talking about, then it'd be good to know that.
Okay, I'll bite. Easy one. Alex and I were talking a little bit before the meeting, about the map. And I would love to see street names, road names on there. I'm trying, I can't find my house, so I,
I can answer that. So that on number 7A, would you mind reserving that for that? That would be
you got it.
You guys just pick one, yeah. Okay, Alex, minute review.
Yeah, Pat and I spoke a little bit about the minute review process. I just wanted to ask if the council members, so when I do send the minutes out in advance, if you all could get back to me with your revisions prior to the meeting, and then I can incorporate those revisions and send out a proof to you all, and then, you know, you can all continue to make revisions technically to the meeting, but I just ask that the procedure be that you all provide that to me at least 48 hours in advance. So our meetings are on Tuesdays, so typically I'll get everything out to you on a Thursday or a Friday. If I can get everything back, you know, before the weekend, ideally, that'd be good. That way, when I send the follow-up reminder email, I can include the most updated meeting minutes in that communication. So does that sound like a reasonable procedure?
Everybody okay with that?
I guess the only other thought I had is, are you comfortable with the way the minutes are being done in terms of their detail, or would you like a little more abbreviated and succinct? Because currently they're quite detailed and they're fairly lengthy as well. So it's kind of, I just wanted to kind of open that up to discussion since we're kind of new council.
Yeah, I just have.
And then we're gonna, well,
I didn't know that was actually a part of our rules for our placards. Well, anyway, I was just wondering if the pages could be numbered, because at home I printed them out. And then I had trouble collating the pages, so I mean, that's part of the word processing thing, isn't it? That you made?
that's not a problem, is it?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
If that's your only comment, then that's,
Well, for now.
okay. Very good. Good.
So I like the current level of detail. They're a little longer. And the only question I had about the minutes was what we had really decided in terms of how to call out the action items. Because we talked about a couple different things, and I looked at these quickly, and if I'm looking for action items, they don't think about it.
Yeah, so what I did is I sent an email out to everybody with those action items in red, and I separated them for the minutes, because the minutes are.
Oh, I must have missed that.
Yeah, I think you might have, yeah, that's mostly just internal for folks here, that's currently how it's programmed.
Well, you know what, you could send those out again with the minutes. But you have me getting in trouble.
It's not too much trouble. Yeah, I could,
Then that way, we have the whole chance to know what we were committed to do. But
No, if I missed it, I
so
apologize.
generally what I'll do is I'll send the draft minutes out
Yeah.
plus action items simultaneously. The
Okay,
action
great.
items will be in an email and the minutes will be attached as a Word document.
but
And if you'd like, I can then later on, when I send the final draft with your revisions, if any, I can also include action items with that again, just to kind of keep everyone up to speed if that's what you want to do, rather than incorporating them into minutes, which I think would be a little unconventional perhaps.
I would say we're probably.
Actually, it sounds like what you're doing is fine. I just missed that, that's.
Okay, so perhaps we're good then, maybe no further, we're good in the current procedure then, is that your comment?
Yeah.
Okay,
From
okay,
my standpoint.
okay.
I agree, yeah.
I like the long minutes. I think all of us are getting a little bit older, except for Brad, he's pretty young. But it's good to have a thorough review of what went on. My memory is not as beautiful as it used to be. Okay,
So Pat, at this point, then, it might be on the minutes review, I would just say,
right.
I would just say
Any
that,
changes, anybody have comments
yeah,
on the minutes? Sorry. You got it right.
now it's your,
Okay, any comments? Will someone move that he
I'll move that we approve the notes.
second,
Also,
all in favor?
I
Okay. Now we're moving on. And you're going to introduce the speaker?
sure, yeah, thank you, Pat. So I'm honored to introduce the Township Sewage Enforcement Officer, Scott Brown from Hanover Engineering.
Never been introduced that way. I'm Scott Brown, with Hanover Engineering. We've been sewage officer probably for about 5 years now here.
Yeah.
Been a little while now. We're, a lot of the townships, subcontract most of that service out rather than having an in-house person. So we've been involved with the sewage program literally from day one. The original owner of our company, who's now retired, was actually in the first certification class for SEO, so our company has a long tradition in sewage. So part of what I was asked to do is go over kind of our duties, my functions. So here's officially what we're supposed to be, or what the SEO is supposed to do. This is how the state regulations, chapter 71, 72, 73, and that one. All of our functions.
This is like a job description.
Kind of, yeah.
We have enough to share with the.
I have 2 extras that
I'm a reader.
must be bored.
I'm a reader. And an empty nester.
You can refresh when I refresh.
So I guess, and the major functions we do is we take care of the individual lots that are applicants that are coming into the township applying for, want to get a building permit ultimately. Take care of all the ranging for the testing, and then once we're through the probe and the perk test, so there's the difference between, it's a 2-step testing process. Soil probe is a deep hole that is about 6 feet deep, and we have to go down and actually do a visual observation of the test pit and write up a soil description. And then assuming that passes, then we would go on and do the perk test. So that's kind of a common issues where people call us and ask us for the testing, fix up the terms, and kind of causes some confusion sometimes, but fortunately it's realtors a lot of times, but it's still well learned. But once that's done, then the testing would be given to the applicant, provide that test results to designer, someone who's actually designed the system. We cannot do that. That's a conflict of interest. The school will be reviewing it and ultimately issuing the sewage permit. And then chapter 7.3, that kind of covers all the technical guidelines of how the systems have to be designed and the types of systems that are available for us to actually permit. We're allowed by the state to permit systems up to 10,000 gallons a day. That's getting pretty big. So then, once somebody has a permit, then they have the okay to go and install the system for that design, and then we normally would have several inspections during the process, during key phases of the construction, and ultimately when it's done, finalize it, then they can actually use the home. They can't get a final CO on the house until that sewage permit is finalized and granted. On the bigger development side, we have to oversee all the testing for land developments and for subdivisions. That's against state required. And part of that testing is also for the new land developments and new subdivisions is to ensure long-term suitability. So the state and most of the townships have now gone to double testing your primary and a backup area for every lot. State, if you're doing a 50 lot subdivision, you're doing at minimum 100 perk tests, 100 pros for that. For commercial developments, when they go over 800 gallons a day, which is two EDUs equivalent, they're considered, they call community system. And with those, the state also then requires that they have operation and maintenance agreements. So anybody that's operating a community system would have to typically hire a lot of septic haulers around here, provide that service where they'll come in yearly, pump the tank, check the tanks, check the drain field, that kind of thing, and provide a report. And then the not so fun part of our job, I mean, I enjoy it. I've been doing this for a long time. I enjoy all that stuff. But then the not so fun part is when we get the complaints of a neighbor about their other neighbor not, letting the sewage come out in the ground. That's been doing that for years. And they're finally tired of it and call us in. And then that's where typical procedure there would be to, approach the homeowner and at least get them to acknowledge they have a problem and kind of go over what they need to do to try and start to correct that problem, whether it's a simple mechanical repair or broken lateral clean out on a septic system, the little white 1.5-inch pipes you see coming out of the drain fields, people whacking with their lawnmowers all the time and then don't fix it, and it just sewage, effluent just pours out of there. That's the simple ones, and then the bad one is, when the system, when the ground actually fails and it won't no longer accept the sewage, and then they're basically forced to go to another location. And nowadays that's a $20,000+ fix. Ultimately, if they don't, we give them several chances to do it kind of voluntarily, but ultimately then we have basically similar to police power, we can do investigation and write citations and go through that legal course to get them to make a correction. If not, then if they still don't do it, but the citations, then it goes into court, whether it's magistrate level or if it gets bad enough, it goes right to the county court and have the judge order repairs. And that's as far as education, the FBOs, I believe we had to have continuing education before the engineers and surveyors had to have continuing education. So we've been doing that every 2 years. We have to have 15 credit hours of continuing education classes, whether it's new system designs that come in. That DEP has been studying in conjunction with Penn State and Del Valle College. They do a lot programs, looking at different new technologies. And there are several out there now that are more than your in-ground system or more than sand mound you have. You have new systems now that a lot of the treatments taken care of in the tank, in the septic tank. Now it's a glorified septic tank. There's a lot of mechanical parts in there. It treats it that basically to a point where once it gets pumped out into the drain field, it's pretty much cleaned up, and the drain field is just out there to get rid of, not drink it obviously, but very clean, much cleaner water than is coming out of standard septic tank.
I have a question if I
Yeah,
may. Is that okay?
Sure.
When a new homeowner buys the property, are they required to check, have their septic, existing septic system tested for function?
No, it's, they are, most of them do, but it's not through the township or state mandate. It's all basically through the banks are requiring the inspections to be done because they don't, pardon me?
Property inspection.
You're part of a property inspection because obviously, again, we're talking $20,000-$30,000, somebody moves in. And they're mortgaged to the hill, now we got a $30,000 repair they gotta make.
If they buy a home,
Pardon me?
real estate process, if they buy a home, it's recommended that the buyer have the property inspected.
Oh, yes, and again, the banks
And the back
want it because it's a big expense down the road that,
for the sewage,
yeah, and
sewage and water.
And yeah, frankly, there's, I've had a couple lately, you got small lots, sometimes there isn't anything. You're trying to rehab the old one, there's no way to go to a new area, so this is an area available, you gotta keep 100 feet away from the wells. But ultimately, the only solution is the holding tank, which, you're pumping that out every 10 days at $200, $300 every time. It's not so we try to avoid that at all costs to figure out, it's a modification of a new technology to try and get something to work. That's the state actually has in the regulations. That's technical guidance, which is allowing us to bend the regulations to a certain degree to fit those type of unique situations.
Can you repeat what you just said, the very last part? I'm sorry.
That's technical guidance.
Yes.
Okay, so it's in the regulations, it allows the sewage officer certain latitude to violate the regulations, and most of those are for isolation distances, like allowing you to get closer to houses, closer to property lines. In certain circumstances, you can get closer than 100 feet to a well. But then you have to get approval that have a well isolation variance. Things have to be allowed by the township. And there's a whole harmless that goes into the fact that that the township isn't liable if they allow you to do that. Sometimes they require a hydrogeologic study to show that 100 feet violation of that distance won't impact a well, their own well. There's still it's hard to get a straight answer out of the state, but some cases you're allowed to violate your neighbor's well, which doesn't quite seem right, that they don't really have a voice in that. I hear sometimes they say you can. I had one instance where I straight out asked the guys, there were 3 wells that would have been violated, and they said absolutely not. But that's the piece allowed to do that.
What are you looking for? What do you look for?
Well, in the initial with the soil probe, we're looking for what they call limiting zones in the generic, the most basic level, but there are several types. One would be a seasonal high water table. So you need to have your sewage when it comes out of the piping, when it hits the ground, you need 48 inches of renovated material. So you need it, when we do the soil probe, we need at least 20 inches of renovated material, and that's where you see the sand mound. The sand makes up the other 28 inches, or a combination of that number. So it's hit a bedrock, which obviously limit the way it goes down, or it had open voided shale. Where the sewage is gonna go away, but it's not gonna get treated, there's no soil, the soil has bacteria that treats break down the bacteria in sewage. And the most common living zone we look for, is what they call soil model. It's discoloration in the soil, it's kind of gray, turns the soil a gray, see gray spots in it. That's an indication that water sits in that area for, it could be a month out of the year. If it sits in there long enough that it basically, again, organisms basically deplete the iron out of the material, and that's what causes the gray, is the iron, the redness, iron moves out. So that's what we're looking for. That's probably 75% of the living zones we see is generally the soil model.
There was a question back here too.
Very interesting what you're telling all of us, and well educated in that soil. When you were saying about complaining about neighbors' smells of their septic and whatnot. On like a Sunday night, if you drive down like past the bike park there. The odor is unbelievable, and you're like, oh my God.
That's
you roll
sewage
your
treatment
windows
plant.
up,
Oh,
what do you
I was
do?
gonna say.
I mean, is that something within the plant that they're not treating the sewage properly that would cause that odor?
Honestly, I don't.
Or
Some of the
overage?
process, I mean, go by any, I mean, our office is down in Bethlehem. I'm also a host inspector for landfills, so like, there's no odors. But I have to travel by the city of Bethlehem treatment plant. And depending on that wind, man, it can knock you for a loop when you
That's
go
not
by.
something.
I think it's inherent, they have, the big open ponds of water that they're treating. And they're bubbling air through that, so that's all that gas is coming out.
Yes.
I don't know that, I
Wow.
think there's ever gonna,
So now, are you an SEO for Smithfield Township?
I'm an SEO for Smithfield Township, but I'm an SEO for,
Many townships.
yes, a lot,
Okay.
yeah.
So do we have an SEO?
Yeah, every township,
Yeah.
yeah, that's me.
Okay.
So every municipality is required by state law to have an SEO. Again, if it's some of the boroughs that have mostly public sewers, they may have a couple of lots here and there. They would just, again, hire somebody, like, bring somebody in from the outside to handle the occasional.
So you
issue.
issue the actual septic permit?
Yeah, for individual, yeah, for on-lot, for any on-lot system, yeah.
Question, so, you said that you issue the subject permits for online. I would assume you hit constructions, right? If there's new home being built and somebody applies for a permit. Would there be a reason if somebody applied for a permit, got approval, and that it was revoked?
Possibly, a neighboring property put a well less than 100 feet.
But then they reapplied and it got approved.
Maybe there was a designer or change the bedrooms, that it would no longer be. Everything's designed based on number of bedrooms for residential, so maybe there was. It's not uncommon where you see it scraps between the building permit and the sewage permit. That those are consistent. That's could be one reason that the site was disturbed in such a way, some equipment went over top of it and not just passed by, but really screwed up the top 6 to 12 inches of soil in the system, and then they may have revoked it, and they could have then had like a soil scientist come out and look at it and try and see if it was still salvageable. I mean, there could be any number of reasons. If you had, something specific, I could probably tell you, but yeah.
Is there a rule about when you need to clean your septic tanks?
There's guidelines, there's no state laws on it. The townships, some townships have a sewage management program. And most of them go like they'll manage every 3 years, so they'll get the township staged at every a third of the population gets their tanks pumped every 3 years, so it's kind of a rolling program.
I do mine every year.
No, honestly, there's no.
I have a good relationship with the cleaners.
Yeah, but you're not really helping, not helping yourself too much from doing that.
Okay.
And with that said, there's a lot of products out there that they say you can put in the septic.
Yes, I have somebody coming out and.
You don't, that there's, the state and Penn State, there's none of those products are recommended actually put in and actually have any benefit to the septic tank.
Yes,
Yeah, I have a couple questions, or maybe it's just one. Do you make a distinction between residential sewage problems, commercial, and how about those developments that seem to have a contractor come in and put in a system and then sell the properties separately as individual residences?
I mean, there's no, it's all, what we're permitting is all what they call domestic sewage. So even when it comes from a business, it's still, it's similar, it's same waste. They can't be putting products of the manufacturing process or, like even hair salons, there's only supposed to be a single chair salons feeding into the septic system. Because again, that all the products they use are not, the soil isn't made to take care of those type of chemicals.
So there is a distinction then between residential. and
Well, yeah,
commercial.
so if it's, like, again, if it's a beauty salon or other commercial or institutional use, that it's by definition not considered domestic sewage. Then it would go into, they'd have to go into a holding tank.
Okay.
And then it would just get pumped out as it gets filled.
My other question then is similar then, we're also making a distinction between sewage and groundwater, getting rid of groundwater, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I was talking about, the soil probe, the part of the testing is to try to ensure that the groundwater, you don't have an elevated groundwater table underneath there. And because you obviously don't.
Well, what I meant, like, your gutters.
Okay, well, I got you. No, so none of that should be going into the septic. Again, the state law says that even water softener backwash is supposed to go into the septic system. That most people don't like doing it. I mean, even some of the state people will on the side, it's not the best thing. It's not as bad as it used to be, because the water softener is a little more efficient and it's not, and that harm all the salts into the sewage. Did I answer?
All right, thank you.
question here.
Yeah, are you familiar with simple green systems? Simple green tanks?
Is that a form of like aerobic tank? They have like an aerator?
It's supposed to be a tank that is similar to what you said, almost a mini sewage treatment plant. With several different sections,
Yeah.
so that the water that exits it is pretty clean.
Yeah, so that's, those tanks are with, they have to get an NSF 40 certification, so and the state has a testing process that actually approves those type of tanks, like Norweco is one of them that
Exactly.
has advanced, but I don't think I've seen
I think it is
the
a
list.
Rico type of thing, but
Yeah.
okay, in Smithfield Township, how many complaints did you have last year?
I'd say under 10.
Less than 10?
Yeah.
Good. That's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, it's really hasn't
And how
been,
many citations did you have to issue?
no,
None.
no,
So
it's like,
nobody had to go to court over there.
no, we didn't have to go that route. No. No, I mean, honestly, most people, I've only had to go to court, I don't know, a half dozen times in my career that most people don't want to go that far.
And then what's the most common type of variance that you have to issue?
A variance?
Yeah, if somebody is it a property line variance?
Oh, Yeah, I mean, they're all pretty much very similar, whether it's distance off of a foundation or distance off a property line. Again, those are only on repair situations.
I see.
But most of the lots up here are larger lots, so we don't run into that when you're talking a quarter acre. Even a half acre with wells, with private water wells all around you. Then it gets a little dicey trying to find areas. But honestly, up here, it hasn't been bad at all. The lots are a bit larger.
Alex?
Yeah, so how exactly does Act 537 interact with on-lot standards? So like for these bigger systems, do the supervisors have to amend their Act 537 plan?
Well, they're amending it every time a subdivision or land development over 800 gallons a day. So you're more than 2 EDUs. It's considered a subdivision by definition in the state regs. So that then kicks in the Act 537 sewage planning modules. The component ones, component 1 and component 2, which are just the forms, but component 1s are just when it's 10 single family lots or less, it's kind of a short form. And then component 2 is pretty much everything else. And it just lays out what you need to show on the plan and all your other approval, whether it's, PIND searches, they go into archaeologic searches and endangered species, all that stuff. When you do component 2, the over 10 lots over commercial, you have to do all those searches also.
So I have a couple of questions. So do the supervisors, they have to vote on that at one of their regular scheduled meetings for?
Well, yeah, and also the planning commission, it would go before the planning commission, they have to sign off. And then the supervisors would have to sign off, basically, they call it revising your 537 plan. So if your 537 plan kind of plans the entire township where public sewers are, where on-lot sewage is gonna be handled. And then if you're if you're developing an on-lot sewage area from the 537 plan, but you're just developing with more intense on-lot system, then you're just revising the plan. But but it definitely has to go, and even the county planning commission will have to look at it also. There's a component that's component 4A. 4A is the township planning commission, 4B is the county planning commission. That goes hand in hand with the component 2.
Can I ask a clarifying question before we continue? Do you mind, Alex?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. So Act 537, that's stormwater management?
No, that's the sewage facilities. That's the governing act that the chapter I was mentioning earlier, the chapter 71, 2, and 3
Got it.
were born out
Okay.
of the regulations to enforce the Act 537.
Okay, so in what you're saying is any commercial development plan that generates more than 800 gallons per day requires approval by planning commission, supervisors and
The
county
county.
planning commission, approval by
Yes.
approval by the county planning commission or?
Well, they
Right.
can't, they have to, I think that they're basically sort of or recommending body, kind of like they are for your
Right.
subdivisions that commit.
The ordinances.
The county's more of a recommending agency. They can't say you can't develop, but, the township says you can. County can say we're not happy with it, but then you can't say no.
And then that would by approving or disapproving a land development plan based on that. I guess if you're approving it, that does revise Act 537?
Yes, that'll revise that for that particular lot, and that'll update it. so
Okay, got it.
Where it was.
Not
one lot.
overall, but just for that one.
Yeah, it's just that property alone.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Will you still
I did have two more, actually. Can the board of supervisors deny an on-lot system or Act 537 proposed provision if they feel it's inappropriately sized? Like, so let's say they have some sort of evidence that somebody presents for the public when they have their vote, and somebody says, I have evidence to say that this commercial or whatever on-lot system should be bigger because the use may overstrain the proposed size, and therefore the developer should build a bigger sand mound. Can the supervisors at their discretion make a denial, or are they? No, I guess the question is, can they use their discretion and deny?
I don't think so, because you got chapter 73, basically laid out how systems have to be sized. So they'd have to test the area. And when any subdivision, whether it's bottom top 2-lot subdivision or a big commercial one, when you go through this planning, it's planning only. It's not permitting the system. That's a whole other process that can only start after the general planning starts. So they're basically at any of those levels, they're just showing general, what they call general site suitability. They're showing they got enough area tested for water, primary and backup for whatever flows they're proposing. Like if it's a warehouse, they got to lay out how many people they have, are going to be in there, and they would have to size, rough in, because you have to perforate, you'd have to rough in an area to show they have enough room to put a system, but it's still not permitted. It won't get permitted until after DEP ultimately approves. So all this stuff gets sent to the DEP, and they have to grant approval on every subdivision.
So the supervisors make 537 plan, and then it gets sent to the DEP, and they issue their final.
They will say, yes, we've approved it, and the SEO is allowed to issue permits on there. So you can't issue anything until.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I've never seen anybody at township deny it because they just think it should be a larger system. What are you basing the state has done all the testing and sizing, and so it'd be kind of tough to.
Is there a public comment period? So once the supervisors pass the 537 here in meeting, then it goes to the DEP. Can the public send comment letters to the DEP, for example, on that?
I guess they could, when there's certain circumstances when, as part of the component 2, that's again over 10 lots. And individual lots or any commercial, where there's a set of criteria that if you meet over, I think it's over 10,000 gallons a day, a certain cost threshold, there's 10 checklist items. If any one of those are hit, you have to make the developer has to put a notice in the paper saying of this development, and then allow for comment from the public.
So how would you? So the public would have.
That would have to be it would stay at the township level until those comments are addressed. And then I'll revise any revisions that are made to the 537 plan or just how those comments are being addressed, but all of that would get then ultimately sent to DEP for them, again, to approve or deny that.
So how would the public know if the developer published this in a paper? Do they have to send that to the township, like proof of publication?
It's changing that with online stuff. I haven't had any in a little while now that have hit that criteria. It just had to be like the the township, a public notification of a meeting. They would just go in similar announcement saying that we're closing this subdivision, and they would again kind of have to list the 10 items that they're doing, like a highlighted version of them, and that public comment is that the entire document is at the township office for review, that you go and review it and make any comments that you really want. That's you're getting bigger systems.
I just have one more question. I'm sorry, I'm talking. I'm very curious. How much purification of water actually happens in the sand mound? Does nitrogen and phosphorus still get into the groundwater? and other chemicals like salts and like PFAS.
Well, and yeah, I don't, PFAS, I don't, they're not, it's gonna, that soil's not gonna stop that. I mean, just, none of the septic systems are meant to design to treat that kind of, those chemicals, again, outside of domestic. You're just talking domestic sewage, so it's, you're really, that's not part of the process of really generating PFAS, and, you might have. I'm not an expert in that at all. But yeah, there's definitely nitrogen that will get into the ground, so part of that planning study is areas that they will look at to see if there's what the background nitrogen is in the ground. If there's elevated levels, say even 5 parts per million nitrate in the background, you're gonna have to do, again, the larger community system, the DEP will make you do a groundwater study to show, if you put this 5,000 gallons a day of sewage over this area, and it's at 5 already, where you're adding, I think they're basically rated at 40 parts per million, I think is what goes in. Will the nitrate plume develop and go off of your property onto somebody else's and usually they're looking at above 10. And then they would check off the DP. Let me go back just a little bit. So on those bigger developments, that component 2, you have to send, the developer will have to send in, they call it a postcard, giving the highlights of their project. You can take a look at it, they'll look at maps. And if you're in a high nitrate area, like a lot of Lancaster, from all the farming activity, they're like right off the bat, you're in a high nitrate area. They will send the component 2 planning module back to you with checked off boxes, say you need a preliminary hydro study, or you need a detailed hydro study, that they can check off other things that you need to do, that if you're in a non-concern area that they won't make you do, it's kind of pointless. So that's where right in the beginning, the big ticket item, big things are looked at. Big items that you would have to address that are maybe unique to your development.
Brett?
Couple softball questions for you, if I might. If the public wants to educate themselves with from a reliable source, where would you send them?
Penn State's a resource that's used. I mean, they have on-lot studies and treatment systems from campus that they're doing, the students are studying all the time. So they're one of the best, they're probably the best source. Del Valle College is another big one that has good resources.
What was that?
Delaware Valley College.
Oh.
It was an agricultural and is that more like an agricultural college at one time?
And from a consumer standpoint, when you mentioned about the additives, which just a consumer wants to think about, what should I put in my septic system? Is there a easy facts page you could recommend them to that we might actually?
Well, again, Penn State would have a fact page. DEP has some on their sites you could look up. But in general, you don't need to add anything.
Right, okay.
They used to say throw a dead groundhog in the tank to get bacteria going. It's not.
That's how my Amazon will tell you.
Oh, yeah, like you see it on TV, Red X and those companies, they're seeing it. I mean, you think about it, they're trying to add microbes that are acting in your septic tank, and they're saying it breaking down the sewage. Well, those solids just don't disappear. They break them into much finer particles that now can possibly it'd be much easier to get out of the septic tank and into your drain field. And you don't want those fine particles getting into the drain field. You want those staying in the tank, because the fine particles are where clogging up the soil in your drain field. So you want to keep it, as solid
I don't want to cut anybody off, but, we're getting short on time. And first of all, I want to thank you very, very much for.
No problem. Anytime.
Really lots of good information, I'm sure a lot of us didn't have. I'm not gonna have my book done every month, every year, you know, that's really good. However, do you have any suggestions of what this council ought to focus on as it relates to your area of expertise? We've been called public involvement is also important. If we can generate that in something,
Well, again, if you have the ability to reach the public as far as, making the handout, having the resources available to provide, to at your meetings that you could have people to pick up and the pamphlets, again, Penn State has a lot, there's I don't know if the township may even have some in there. I mean, it's kind of, townships used to have those things in the office all the time, but now everything being online, it seems like it's just less and less. I guess the last thing I'd like to just quick say about is, again, it's a big expense for a homeowner. When they do a malfunction and they got to replace their septic system, the township, the state does have a loan program called PennVest that they can apply for. I think it's up to $25,000. And it's a longer term loan and it's a good interest rate. And it's administered by local banks. There's not a lot of them here, but I'm sure there's one or two up here at least that would administer that program, that loan. And basically you have to get all the permit, the testing done, the permits, basically have a design, everything, and then you can give it to them. Obviously, you can talk to them before that, but that's what you would also need before they would close on a loan to help you.
is there a pamphlet on that?
PennVest has, yeah, you could, there were, I mean, I'm sure there still are, but again, everything's online now. PennVest, so just look under PennVest program. It's for on-lot sewage, on-lot sewage system, which is Pennsylvania is one of the largest on-lot system users in the United States. Yeah, they're one of the top ones, yeah.
We have something that's available right here in this building that's closely related, I think. People familiar with this? This is something right out there in our lobby, or in the outer area. This is all about green property management. It has a big section about stormwater and water in general, right here. One of our own resources, we put together another one about septic. So it's not a deal.
I want to add to Pat's question, is there anything that we can, us as a town, can do for you to help your work go more easily? Is there a grind that when you see, oh, I'm gonna do this and.
I'm dating myself. The township is doing more to make things easier, but everything's going online and computer, downloading of permits. I'm old school yet. I'm used to having paper and dealing that. So I don't interact well with the computer. So I have the younger guys that are under me now that I'm basically, they're good at that. So I kind of give them, they kind of take care of that. And the townships are great. The way we operate, we'll do whatever, however the township wants to operate. Some townships, basically, we receive the fees, we collect the fees from the applicant, process the application, basically the township has zero involvement. We keep the records until we actually issue a permit, then we'll send a permit down to the township once it's ready. Other townships will take care of all the administrative work and just have us going out and doing the testing and the inspections. But they take care of getting, all the money goes there, the applications get filed there, they just give us copies of what we need to do the outside work. So, and there's everything in between, so we operate different, and every township is a little different, which is fine with us. They can kind of handle either way, but no, this township
Okay, let's
is
see
good.
if we have any more questions from Us,
I just have one. Is there anything you think that the treatment plant could like put on? To get that smell off? It's awful.
Honestly, I don't,
A lid.
Or is it overly being used that there's too much?
well, if it's if it was overused consistently, then DEP, every year, a treatment plant has to file there's I forget the name of what the number of the document is, but it basically shows what their average daily inflow is. It's all the chemicals. It covers,
But
it's
it's
a
like.
report
mostly
that, but if it's overloaded, then
Overuse.
DEP would do it. And usually the treatment plants, they're permitted for, just say, 2 million gallons. And when they hit 100, 1 million gallons or maybe a little bit more, they're already having to look at what they need to do to handle additional, start looking at the handling additional. So it shouldn't be a continuous overflow
But it's
situation,
like-
but honestly, I don't deal much with.
Yes.
I don't-
That's after.
Yeah.
it's like
Thank you,
holiday
Shawnee.
weekend.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, so honestly,
And
I
if they
don't.
wanna like add more people to that treatment plant, how can they even be permitted to do that?
Well, because their permit, and then they're allowed so many gallons, and if on paper,
On paper.
the flows all down here, they still have
Yeah.
excess capacity to take on other customers, otherwise they would have a moratorium on connections if they reach that permitted capacity.
So is that something that you oversee or you?
No. Nope.
He's on lot.
Yeah, I'm just,
Wow,
what goes into the ground.
that's commercial. That would be DEP.
Well, he's
Well,
on
DEP
lot,
perm-
even if it is commercial, right?
Well, we can, yeah, there's on-lot, commercial that's uses on-lot systems, then not all commercial goes into a treatment plant. So anything on-lot is what I would take,
Right.
whether it's home or commercial.
Right.
Up to 10,000 gallons.
okay, going on, Alex.
My comment is, if you have any questions about central sewer or sewer plants or anything like that, wait, if you wouldn't mind respectfully waiting till 8B, because we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. Scott, yeah, I'll turn it to Pat. I just wanted to thank you
Oh, sure.
for answering my questions so expertly. I've learned a lot. I've taken a lot of notes, so I thought you did a great job.
I'll do it, sir.
Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, Alex, the next part of the agenda, the whole business.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, the next part of the agenda, there's 2 items. I just want to give an update on the request for technical assistance by the Monroe County Planning Commission for the official map. I provided everybody with a copy of, so at the last meeting, you all asked me to work with the Monroe County Planning Commission to update the environmentally sensitive areas map with points of reference. That map is right there. And I want to just open it up for discussion on that item there.
Do you all have one? You have one?
Thank you.
Discussion.
Comments, questions?
I have a real hard time figuring out how I get to some place I wanna look at. So that gets back to the question that was raised earlier about how superimposing the roads here in some way or shape or form.
Like the township road, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
so that,
yeah.
so that it's really useful. You did a little bit here.
Yeah.
And I guess I can figure out that this is 309, maybe what a regular road is, but it would be very helpful when you want to go look at that.
It's just a GIS generated map, so it's just, the road names would be just a layer that literally they just have to flip a switch. And it'll turn that layer on as the road names.
Oh,
It's
So
about,
we do that ourselves online?
I know some of when you go into the GIS system, they do have options of clicking on like front to show property lines or, so it's just different, what they call layers. So that's each type of feature, like your NWI wetlands, they just turn off and on, so it's just from the national map. So it really shouldn't be hard to add that. For them to, I think have to update the map, just recreate.
Do we need an action
Reprint the
item?
map with that layer on.
Do we need an action item? wanna,
You could also wait until all the discussions finalized. And then you might want to recommend an action item, taking all the discussion in mind. and then-
good, Alice.
I think there's a question.
I do work. Well, just to piggyback on Mitch's comment, in addition to road names and street names, I would find it personally helpful if the conserved land was labeled. I'm assuming some of this is National Park, Cherry Valley. I would find that helpful. That's it. Yeah, I'm done.
I think I've seen something like that.
Yeah, I just mean for this map, because, you know, since it is environmentally sensitive areas, I would think those lands. Right?
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at, like there's the main preserve, there's three types of main preserved lands. You have in the township, you have the East Stroudsburg Reservoir area, you have the National Recreational Area, and you have a couple of township parks.
Right, it would
So-
be nice to have those labeled.
It would be,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I agree. And that's probably something I can look at.
Cool.
Yeah, because that's also different levels, national, state, local, township.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have any state in your municipality. I'm not sure on that. It may all be federal and may all be town, and then there's the reservoir land, which is local municipally owned land by the East Stroudsburg Borough.
Right.
Not sure if there's any game lands or state forest lands in your, I don't believe there is.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think there is not,
There's not, okay.
yeah, federal, no, I believe.
Is there a PennDOT, location in, township?
There is property owned by PennDOT not too far from here, as I understand. Not sure that I would call that permanently preserved land, but it is owned by the state. I did notice in the PA bulletin not too long ago that PennDOT was advertising a sale of property they own up in Mount Pocono, so. They do have the right to liquidate that property to the lowest, or to a bidder at the fair market value. So I'm not sure, I don't know if there's an easement on that property. So something to think about.
Well, when this says conserved land, what does that, in that the parks and stuff?
Conserved land would be any property that is permanently protected in some form.
So that's the yellow.
Correct.
Correct, but
So
there,
what do you-
some of the yellow is Delaware Water Gap National Recreation.
I see.
Some of it
You
is
wanna-
Cherry Valley Wildlife Refuge, some of it is township parks. Yeah,
And the white is land that Smithfield Township owns, is that correct?
The white is land that doesn't have environmentally sensitive areas,
But it's private property.
all private property, correct? Yeah, so one thought I had when looking at this is that if you were to take this and go down to like southeastern Pennsylvania or Lancaster County, you'd probably see more white. So this is a unique area here in the Poconos. Because if you look at the land, there's almost as much color as there is white on first glance, so the Poconos are a unique landscape here in Commonwealth.
Is the slope land undevelopable, basically? But there's a fair amount of slope land.
There's, and that's a really good question about.
lot of, look, as far as your township, a lot of townships will have, in their subdivision, in their saldo. And even in their zoning, most in saldo, they'll have what you can, anything over, they break it off between 15 and 25%, and they'll allow less coverage. Less disturbance in those areas and over 25%. So the townships, a lot of townships will do that on their own.
Yeah, that's a great point. Really good.
I mean, fact is, there's systems that are designed, they can handle, they can go on 25% or less slope. So from a sewage end, if you have enough land, but it's steep, there are systems you can actually put in. Wow, so.
It's really interesting. I don't have any other comments. I shared with my boss and
Any other comments on this, any suggestions for what we want to see happen? And our action items,
guys, I mean, we could start by seeing what it looks like when we get all the roads.
yeah,
And that way, you know, folks can get to area, you know, in order to navigate, maybe I try labeling the road as well.
I think we should do I hear people say that it would be good to have the roads. It would be good to know which government agency has responsibility for the conserved land.
Yeah, so we can do that, we can do both, and see what it looks like, there's a possibility that it will be too busy of a map, you don't want this to be like, where's Waldo either, you want there to be, you know, enough point of reference so you can get there, but you don't want it to be overwhelming in detail.
I agree with you. And just shaking his head, yes.
Yeah.
So yes, we don't want it too busy, but we also want it practical so that we can look at it and it can be the basis of our planning.
Right, and that's the whole point of this,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily to help folks figure out where exactly their 1 acre parcel is. It's really to help this council carry out their
Correct.
duties in identifying. So another thing you might want to consider is identifying all the parcels that are potentially protectable, and typically the minimum is 10 acres. So every parcel 10 acres or more could be delineated on there for potential, you know, less than 10 acres, typically, my understanding is they're not feasibly protected. Like, yeah, something to think about.
Okay. So do you understand the action item? Can you repeat it back or shall I try?
Yeah, I think I got all that. What I can do is, I don't think there's anything formal required here. It's more so I'll have a conversation with the planning commission and see and play around with these metrics a little bit and put something together that looks reasonable and is tailored specifically towards what the goal of the council is. And maybe there could be two versions. Maybe we have one with the roads and another one with the 10 acre parcels. All these things are possible. It's just,
Well, so what our action item is that we want to expand the map or add to the map for better, what? Comprehension of
yeah,
what's relative
yeah,
to us,
yeah, that sounds, I would agree.
okay,
You're not gonna try to put every single road in the township on there, just the main roads that we can identify, right?
yeah, okay. So we don't need a motion to that effect now?
No, I don't think you need to. This is
You have to capture our.
This is an action item I'll take back after the meeting and I'll report back to you guys next month.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Everybody happy with that? Yeah, okay. June presentation.
Yes. Pat and I had discussed a little bit about the natural lands presentation. I've heard some questions from the public as well about natural lands. So natural lands is confirmed. I spoke to Kate today. And it's confirmed for June 18th. The board did formally move to invite Kate. Oh, well, yeah, let me just finish this before I go on my other call here. Did move to formally invite Kate Rahman from Natural Lands. She has it on her calendar. We're currently working out the details on exactly what information will be presented. As soon as I have more details, I'll reach out to the council via email.
Okay, would you just remind us what the natural land what it is, so.
Yeah, so Natural Lands is the Natural Lands is the name of a 501, I think they're a 501. They're named an organization that I suspect is 501c3 nonprofit. Their mission is to, one of the parts of their mission, as I understand it, is to provide some technical assistance to municipalities, to organizations like yours who have an interest in utilizing the municipal platform to potentially consider protecting land one way or the other. They do many other things. They actually have the Bear Creek Preserve up in, I don't know which township it is, but it's up near the Francis Walker Dam. They have a huge preserve there, so they actually do land stewardship and preservation simultaneously. They're a very large organization that has a lot of different employees that do different things. Kate's specialty is municipal technical assistance. A lot of their work's down in Chester County and Delaware County, southeastern Pennsylvania.
Should we put that on so the public knows that they're gonna be here? Is that important? I mean, it would seem to me like that would encourage some people to want to come.
That's,
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do that. That's no problem. It's a little, we're still working out the
Yeah,
details. As soon as we work out those details and I communicate to you, Pat, and everyone knows, then at that point, we can consider that.
That's our next regular meeting.
Yeah, the next regular meeting.
Everybody okay with that?
I assume that's a PA, non-profit organization, or is it an actual?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can get it for you.
Well, we can ask them.
Yeah, you can ask.
It's not related to the National Trust, is it, which is
No.
historic preservation and all.
No, I believe they're only Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I suspect they are. I don't know for sure. And there is no, I don't believe they're related to that. Yeah, so there's a lot of different organizations that are land trusts. There's Pocono Heritage Land Trust who isn't gonna be with us. They're at least now. There's natural lands, there's the nature conservancy, there's hundreds of them in Pennsylvania and nationally, and they all have that general mission.
Okay, Alex, you can't get away with that little grin. What are you not telling us?
It's, as of right now, Pocono Heritage Land Trust, they did work with us, and I think actually Eric can speak to that maybe a little later. I wanna try to move along the agenda. But we have, I think we can talk a little bit about that at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the only other thing, Pat, I wanted to say is, the council here, did actually recommend that supervisors working with the Monroe County Planning Commission on updating the official map, as I'm sure you all remember that. The supervisors did motion in favor, so they did support that, and we're currently working out a date when the planning commission is gonna come before the supervisors. And they're gonna present to the supervisors, and I'll let you all know so that you can be there and participate in that meeting.
Okay. I think the wetlands, discussion, you should start it. I couldn't find the ordinance. Brett says he has it, and then we had it last time. Did you give it to us last time?
Yeah, so I sent it in the email last Thursday to everybody.
Oh, see, I didn't see that, so.
Yeah, so what this is the supervisor amending their zoning ordinance. It's a text amendment to their zoning ordinance.
I see.
They moved to send it to the planning commission here in the township, which was unanimously approved, and then they sent it to the county planning commission for review. We have not gotten a review that yet, and you and I had discussed this, and you want to add it to the agenda.
Yes.
And you all have it before you, and so, why don't you all open that up to discussion?
Allison,
So
what's
this
the
is, you have to
website?
go through a few steps before this, for the supervisors to be approved.
Correct. The steps are, they will be advertised, we will get a review back from the planning commission, those comments will be considered, it will be advertised again, and then I think there's 2 advertisements. It'll be advertised in some fashion, meet the minimum legal standards, and then there will be a public hearing. And then the hearing will be closed and the board will consider that testimony.
The copy on the website is the most current copy.
Yep.
Is it fair to say that this is basically just an upgrade of what we already have? And the update is required because of, state requirements, or is it just our own initiative? I mean,
It is the Board of Supervisors initiative.
and is there anything in particular that prompted this initiative?
The Board of Supervisors. That's a good question. So there was a work session. A joint work session between the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. I believe, James, you were at that meeting, the Board of Supervisors. That's when this all began. And then based on that discussion, it was presented at the last Board of Supervisors meeting and the last Planning Commission meeting for deliberation. The Board of Supervisors proceeded to continue to move forward. So,
So this has already been talked about quite a bit.
yes, but
Okay, and so the reason it's been brought to us is that we're just reviewing it from an environmental point of view, or?
yeah, I spoke to Pat and Pat wanted to add it to the agenda.
I actually said it at the supervisors meeting, that I thought we should have at least known about it before it was done. Just, I know we're new, but it seems to me like that we should have had some input. Yeah. And so Alex said, he would bring it up to this meeting.
This is your opportunity for input, essentially.
James, what did you think about it at the planning meeting? Are you just, can you give us a little kind of summary of the discussion and?
We went over it. Okay, a little definition as to what the margins were and the wetlands. And it was proposed to do it in this fashion and then present it.
So was it?
It was talked about, it was discussed, it was talked about, and in the end, everybody agreed.
And what was the purpose? What was the purpose of this?
Plans to make sure that they defined properly and that they are used properly.
That's important. Yes, Scott.
What is the definition of margin area? How do we,
The margin area is where you can safely use, where you can use up to a certain area of the wetlands without encroaching on the wetlands.
Yes, and I'll just piggyback on that. It's 75 feet. It's about
okay, so define it and define distance.
Yep, 75 feet from the delineated wetlands out. Yep.
Current or proposed? 75 feet current or proposed?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the 75 feet, it's currently 75 feet or
Yes.
you want it to be 75
It
feet?
is currently 75 feet.
That's already said.
Oh, I can call myself. You mentioned the last time, someone was cutting down trees. And using the thing to fill in the, who did that? Because that's worrying me. Ever since we had that discussion.
That was dust. That was dust when we were sitting over there, when we was talking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody was chopping down trees and break, what do you do? Chop them up and divide them and use
Filling
them
up
to
the
fill,
wetlands.
yeah, filling the wetlands behind his house to extend his property line. Now, it didn't seem to me like that should be allowed.
It's not in the it's not in the ordinance. It says you can't do that.
The new one, I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. In the ordinance before you, it's certainly a prohibited activity.
Okay,
There is a little bit, I would say that in what you have before you, it clearly states, like, for example, in that example, it says, I'm trying to find it here, number 5, no cutting of any vegetation within the wetlands. And in the wetlands margin area, they can have limited forestry activities that impact up to 40% of it.
now I remember, and I remember that, the presenter said that that person should notify them, right?
Notified it.
What was the name of the young man that gave us the presentation last time? Yeah.
Oh, the conservation district.
Yeah,
Okay, and they should contact the conservation.
yeah, and that they would do something.
Yeah, well, that it depends if it's in their jurisdiction or not. The wetlands margin area is not within the jurisdiction of the conservation district. It is entirely within the jurisdiction of the township supervisors. And one could all, yeah, so, and there's also certain activities of wetlands are in the jurisdiction of the conservation district or the DEP either. The local municipal supervisors, have their own jurisdiction within what happens in wetlands. To some degree. As I understand it, so like, let's say, for example, somebody wants to cut down a few trees or a lot of trees in their wetland, but they're not gonna build a house there, or they're just gonna go in there and cut all the trees down. Not sure the conservation district, the can tell them stop. However, if the supervisors wish to set their own standards looking at what can occur in the wetlands, such as number 5, you know. Then under certain circumstances, if something like that were to happen, then
I think number 3 answers that question. Because then it defines it a little bit more.
yep. 3 and 5.
Right, the 3 and 5 go, actually 5 should go first and then 3. 5 should become 3 and 3 should become 5.
Well, I guess the word for me is, well, it is happening, it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything about it.
Well, it's happening, and I don't know what's happening, because I haven't seen it myself. I've heard some comments that it's happening, and you know, if the current ordinance is pretty short. If you take a look at it, it's about this long, right? And then the proposed new one is 2 full pages long, so, you know, my position on this is it's, you know, I think it adds more detailed standards for what may occur in and around the wetlands. And, I think when it comes to enforcement, theoretically, the more detail, the better. And also, you know, currently the ordinance allows for the building of golf courses in wetlands. They can put on lot sewage, and there's a lot of flexibility in the current ordinance, and this is ideally.
Brightens that up.
Just to say, the conservation district, the ones they don't remove the stumps, they can cut the trees, but as long as they don't remove the stumps, it's not considered
Oh,
a
really?
disturbance. So that's,
So this is much more restricted. Than
And as far as all lot sewage systems, any permitted all lot systems that right now they can go into a wetland.
Yeah, and that's actually a correction. So our current ordinance says that you can put sewage, and that is a correction, I guess, because it's not even consistent with the regulations. Right.
Is it, it had to be 10 inches or less to the soil model, that's one of the classifications to be a wetland. I believe it's less than 10 inches to that soil model indication of a high water table. There's no permissible systems that can go in that condition.
That's excellent feedback, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So we're gonna take out this 40%, right? The margin,
The supervisors would like the 40% to remain.
but if it's not, then 40%, then, you know, it's really not that it's negligible compared, but what I'm saying is that do we take the chance of contaminating the wetlands? Because there's always that somebody oops factor, or that, you know, I didn't see that, or I won't say anything if you don't, that kind of thing.
So the 40% is just the margin area, just to
Right.
clarify. And so let's say you have.
40% of the 75 feet, so it's,
Correct.
so you got the 75 feet, so this is the 40%,
Yeah,
right? So you got 75 feet,
yeah,
and then we say 40% of that, right, somewhere,
right.
okay? So do we really take the chance?
That's a policy call on the behalf of the community. Some municipalities have like a 50-foot buffer for 0 activity there. And if somebody wants to go in there and do anything, even if it's just building a little shed, they have to get code before the zoning hearing board. Other municipalities are even more restricted, and I think I saw one that had 75 feet of just no-go zone around the wetlands. The supervisors, I had originally proposed, or I wouldn't say proposed, but I had originally brought up the possibility of less than 40%, and the supervisors felt that that was not acceptable and wanted it to remain 40%. So the current ordinance allows 40%. And the supervisors.
And
said-
if our. If we disapprove, would that make a difference?
The council has the right to make a written recommendation to supervisors. If you all agree that 40% is, if you want to reduce this to some other number, then the council could potentially make a written recommendation to Julia, and then she could deliver to the supervisors.
So I guess that's what we're coming down to. What should we do
Well, we need
as a group?
how quickly do we need to act on this?
Tonight.
Tonight.
Mhm. If you intend to make a written recommendation to the board of supervisors, it would have to happen tonight. And that is, as an advisory council, that is, an option you have. It's not a legal, like, it's a
You
little,
don't have to.
it's a little bit of a gray area, because,
And they don't have to pay against.
I wouldn't say that. I would just say it's a little bit of a, you don't have a solicitor here, right? You have me, but I'm not,
But you have a PhD.
Dr. Johnson.
So we have no power really at all, but we can make a recommendation, and if we don't, then the supervisors will vote on this as it is, correct?
Well, I thought there was gonna be a joint meeting or something.
Well,
Monroe County.
that
I am
the
confused.
joint meetings are already occurring.
No, you said the planning committee and, the planning, whatever that
Plan commission.
commission and the supervisors were gonna get together again. And that we should come, that we'd be invited.
I think we're talking about two different things. So me and Pat had a conversation about the importance of attending some of these meetings so that,
No, that isn't,
okay,
that's not what
I
I
think
thought.
that's,
But you just said that there was gonna be a meeting and we would get an invitation.
that was for, yeah, I think that what I was referencing was there's a hypothetical meeting where the official map update will be discussed with the.
Oh, yes, you're right. Okay.
But the one thing that this doesn't identify is the size of the property.
And it's because there is no property size. It's any lot which has these indicators. So if you happen to have, if you look at number,
If you just border on a piece of the wetland, you could have a small lot, right?
yeah,
Well, how do
basically,
you come to the conclusion when you say any lot,
yeah.
okay? So you're saying a lot that's, it's gotta have at least 75 feet to the wetland.
So I don't know all the lots in your municipality. I'll try to answer that. And I think I see where you're going. Let's say you have a lot that's 1/10 or 2/10 of an acre. And,
It's not gonna happen.
in those scenarios, and let's say that's all within the wetland margin area. You can impact up to 40% of your property. Beyond that, you'd have to go before the zoning hearing board. So I think that might be why the supervisors want to give the property owners that flexibility, because if you look, there are a lot of wetlands in the township, and
Mhm.
you don't want to be that property owner who already can't build a house, but maybe you want to put, I have to be a little careful what I say, because I might say the wrong thing.
Mhm.
But you see what I'm saying, like that, I think that might be, I can't speak for them, but it seemed like they wanted to give property owners more flexibility on what they could do with their property, as opposed to, say, like 10% of the wetland margin area.
Right, but what if we decide?
Yeah.
Okay, time to decide that 40% is acceptable, but do we know for sure that that is acceptable? How do we know that that number is correct according to, the guidelines, for the EPA?
So
Wetland.
that's a great question.
Because, we could say, 40% is good. But what does the EPA say is good? So it could be more. It
Yeah,
could be more, they might say that 50% is acceptable.
What was the planning commission recommendation to the supervisor?
40%. They came up with 40%, but now that in hindsight, I'm thinking it's 40% based on whose definition?
It's 40% based on. You just, you just.
The supervisors want to do this, I get it, because
Well,
they want to give landowners the flexibility,
Right.
but wetlands are protected,
Mhm.
okay? It's protected so that we don't destroy the natural habitats of, certain, species, right?
Yeah, the
And
wetlands, so both the wetlands and so from a wildlife habitat standpoint, both the margin and the wetlands themselves are both very important.
And
Species
what
don't
about endangered
necessarily,
species?
like, for example, deer, they bed in the wetland, or turkeys, they will roost in the margin area. They will not be in the wetlands itself, so if you were to remove too much of the margin area, now you remove that habitat. That's an example. The margin
Right.
area is critical for wildlife habitat.
Right,
And there's a lot of evidence saying that, 150 feet is the bare minimum around wetlands and streams for a buffer, a forested buffer. There's other studies that suggest it should be even more. 300 feet is ideal for certain species, like turkeys tend to roost a little further
but
from,
that's,
yeah. That's just one.
we're talking large plots of land, right?
Right.
But we're talking about an individual lot.
I'm just talking about the buffer, what the research on the buffer is. The buffer itself, the buffer has, if it has a wetland. Let's say the wetland of some size, let's say, the side, maybe, I don't know, but let's say there's a wetland and then there's a margin area. The forested margin area has a lot of wildlife value and it also has a lot of stormwater management value.
Is that but you're saying this is the number we could take to the bank?
I can't say that because every municipality is a little different. There's some that allow 20% impacts to the buffer. There's some that allow no impacts to the buffer. There's some that allow total impacts to the buffer.
Yeah,
And it's, yeah,
I don't think there's any, I've never saw any kind of federal EPA regulation on the margin area. I think that's more of an individual call of the township if you're doing something, but I never saw any projects that we ever
But
worked on.
okay, so 75 feet from the property line to the wetlands. That's a consistent number. That's
75 feet from the wetland and out. Yes, not, the property line has nothing to do with it. It's literally just where the wetlands line is out into whatever property.
So if you have a lot that has a wetland, you have to have that minimum of 75 feet.
Yeah, so if you have a lot with a wetland, ideally you don't buy that lot before checking that, but if you inherit that lot, for example,
Exactly.
then, hopefully it's more than, maybe hopefully it's large enough to have some of the uses. Hopefully.
Wouldn't they delineate like or put ribbons so you could identify the wetlands and then you would know from that orange ribbon this way, 75 feet you can't. And then you have a little bit of room that you could.
Mhm.
They should ribbon it.
You mean the surveyor?
Well, the conservation district. would go out and do a
It looked like in that ordinance, you had qualified professionals that would go out and delineate, so literally they would put flags
Yeah, they should.
around to mark where the wetland starts and stops, in
Right.
their opinion. And then a surveyor would go out, locate all those pins, and then you could create that 75-foot buffer from that survey. You have the border of that wetland defined.
Yeah, hopefully a surveyor.
And if the owner wants to use more than 4%, it kicks it into a variance requirement.
Yeah, like, let's say they wanna put their house right next to a wetland, because they feel that that's the best spot for it, for whatever reason. But obviously, a house is gonna potentially impact more than 40% of the wetland. And so in that case, they would have to come before the ZHB for a variance. So there is relief.
Right.
Even under these, they can grant that at their discretion. Well, they can grant, scratch that last part, they can grant it if it meets the criteria for a variance, which are, yeah.
So I'm sure that the slope of the land has an effect on that buffer. So if a property owner is right on the edge of a hill, for them to be 40 feet closer, doesn't really matter.
Right. So if we kick this down hypothetically to 15%. And the landlord wanted to use the thing, they have to go before the township and request a variance.
Correct. And they have to meet the criteria of a variance, which is not a light lift.
I'm sure that there must have been a fair amount of comparisons made with the planning commission. It must have been. That they wouldn't just come up with
Do we have,
75.
do we have, something more? That's more definitive? On the wetlands?
The only actual defined wetlands currently that don't require delineate, that's a really good question, are those, that's why we put that blue in there. Those are the mapped out, but those are just the ones that are from satellites or have been previously mapped out from development.
Are they defined in the floodlands?
The floodplains are not necessarily a wetland. So you can be a floodplain, that's not a wetland.
What's riparian?
Riparian,
Water.
so, you know, just to Brett's point, if you wanted to recommend the supervisors not that 40% down to 15, that's certainly something the council could do. I personally don't have a horse in this race. I'm here to simply help answer your questions. It's entirely up to the council to make these sorts of decisions.
Yeah, to your point.
Yeah, but I would think it should be based upon some research that's been done, some comparisons. And there should be some good logic other than just saying it's going to protect it.
One logic, and I will respond to that. One logic is it's already 40% and it's been in place and it's been working. And so that is.
Has it been working? We don't know.
Logic.
We don't know.
It's, so your current ordinance since that, I don't know how long it's been in place, but it's been, you know, I talked to a zoning officer, I talked to an engineer, they felt that 40% is working.
Well, what is working?
In terms of not having any, like, not having, I guess, I don't know the answer to that question, but maybe that might mean they're not getting a lot of variances before the DHB, it's not becoming contentious. That might be one, I don't know, I didn't.
Yeah.
So 40% really isn't completely arbitrary, there is some logic behind it, right? Would you say?
I would imagine when they put this ordinance together originally that there was some logic in that.
How long is this ordinance in place?
The current, I do not know the answer to that question.
And, what happened, say, 40, 50 years ago?
Well, my concern is that it is just happened, you know, I mean, it just, the supervisors met and they did it, we met with the planning committee and they did it. And we didn't know anything about it. That's what you told me I should be going to all planning meetings, which I agree with you. But, do we want to do anything about this or not?
That's a great question, and you're probably not asking me, you're asking your fellow council people.
But I'd like your advice too.
I think this is much stronger than your current text as written, and is it perfect? No, none of these things are, but it's a leap forward from where you are currently, so you may consider that to be a win in and of itself, and then, you know, in 6 months from now, if you feel like, you know, if you really have a burning desire, you know, these things can always be re-amended, but I just feel like this is just so much stronger than what you currently have that, I mean, it's gonna be better for the community as currently written.
Can we recommend that, I would just say it's a whole lot stronger than what we had. But can we ask that before it's amended, before it's, approved, before it's approved, that we know for certain that the 75 and the 40% are actual numbers based on actual research into.
I think the research would point to more than 75 feet. 75 feet, if I understand the buffers, is like the DEP bare minimum. When it comes to like, larger projects, 150 is sort of, especially in special protection watersheds, is really ideal. And, but I think you have to be a little careful asking that question because like we talked about, these are not, there's no formal DEP, this is there's a lot of flexibility in margin area and it's a point of considerable debate among policymakers and scientists currently, and you're not gonna get a straight answer on that. So it could potentially delay this unnecessarily. And I wouldn't necessarily, so that's my response, to be honest with you.
It's better to approve what is stronger, quicker, and then come back and fix it later if it has to be fixed.
That's a good way to put it.
That's what I'm hearing.
But we could make some comments, as James says it. We have it. Yes,
I have a few comments about this. I think that it's probably overdue, first of all, to update our wetlands guidelines. This was first brought up in a public meeting on May 11th, at the May 11th supervisors meeting. And that's the first that I've heard about it. On the 15th, I believe, at the joint session between the planning commission and the board of supervisors, it did not appear on the agenda. However, it was discussed. And now it's here. It's moving very quickly, and that alarms me. The other thing that I find alarming is that this ordinance not only discusses the wetlands, but it also repeals an entire section unrelated of the zoning ordinance. It's got pork in it.
what?
It has pork in it.
No, but what is
So
it?
it's repealing all of the language in the jurisdiction section 27-802 of the zoning ordinance, which is based on validity challenges, which is something that I'm currently involved in with the township. And I don't expect you guys to, you're the environmental committee, so validity is another thing, but it's completely unrelated. And that part of it hasn't been discussed really anywhere. Everybody's just glossing over that. And the speed with which this is being hustled through, I find a little nerve-wracking. And so, again, I just want to make you, the council, aware of that.
Well, you can make a motion. May I, before you make the motion, can I respond to a public comment? So. Yeah, so it was introduced it was deliberated on the 8th. And then on the 9th was the planning commission meeting where there's further deliberation by that body, right? And this current document does include, as you correctly stated, there is a section on, this is doing two things. It's repealing and replacing district regulations on wetland, which we just discussed. And it's also section 27-802(1)B is being repealed and revoked in its entirety. That's a different section of the zoning ordinance, and that's based on I guess there's some sort of case law. This is a lawyer thing, but there's some sort of case law where a section of the ordinance's validity cannot be challenged before the ZHB has to go before a judge at the court of common pleas. So that's sort of a legal item that's being included on here, just to answer that. And then the speed comment is reasonable. I would point out though that this has not been advertised yet. There's still a review from the county planning commission. There's going to be a public hearing, and it is still a ways out before the board, considers these things. And I think
Our
that,
implements.
well, considers,
They're considering it right now.
well, they've deliberated on it. in a couple of different forums.
That's considering, I think.
And well, they discussed it and deliberated, and then they sent it to the county planning commission for review. And we were awaiting those comments, and those will be uploaded as soon as we get them. And then, the board of supervisors may choose to advertise this, they may choose not to advertise this, it's entirely within their discretion. I don't know if that helps kind of address some of your comments at all.
Well, not really, because I'm looking at the planning commission agenda from May 9th. This does not appear on the planning commission agenda. I haven't seen it on a planning commission agenda
It should be.
yet.
Sorry.
Might be in the minutes, but it didn't appear on any agenda.
Okay,
And I go to everything, I don't miss a thing.
when you say it, are you referencing the validity challenge or?
I'm the whole document, the entire, it's all one document.
Right,
So,
so this document was presented before, the whole thing was presented before for discussion. And it was on the agenda, it was referenced as 27-401-3D, I believe, on that agenda for May 9th.
The planning.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean,
it was referenced as what?
well, if you take a look at the agenda, you will see.
27-401? C 27-401, that's it?
Need to know the code.
Anyway, it's usually,
Not my decoder, right?
anyway,
We need to come to, an
Well,
agreement
I'm looking
on
at,
what-
I'm looking at, subsection 27-02. And it's, they're removing, terminations of, floodplains.
I think we're talking about totally different things.
Well, it says, it's subsection 27-02. It says jurisdiction.
I think for some.
27-401,
Okay. yeah.
3D.
Okay.
And 27-02. 1B. So they,
Or you
Every
referencing
movie
the
chapter-
ordinance, I got it.
okay, so on 27-802, 1B, it's a challenge to validity of land use ordinance, raising procedural questions or alleged defects in the process of enactment or adoption with challenges shall be raised by an appeal taken within 30 days after the effective date of said ordinance. So once it's done, it's done. So.
Yeah, and that change is based on the attorney for the zoning hearing board responding to a member of the public who sought a validity challenging and informing them that something in the legal framework of the state of Pennsylvania has changed and that provision is no longer valid.
Correct, yeah, Alex is correct, I'm that person, but I don't understand why it's being bundled with this. I don't understand why,
Is this?
That's a question for the, that's a question for the.
and I just did something that I wanted you guys to be aware of, that it's
Yeah.
a little quirky if you.
But that's
Have
It's a
it.
lot of practice
Really not in our.
Is it?
to do, yeah, when you're making amendments to an ordinance. If you have other changes, they would do it as one.
Even though they're completely unrelated?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there something being repealed from the
okay.
floodplain?
We have to,
No.
Well,
I want to say one thing first. I agree with Alex that anything that is stronger is better. I mean, we don't want to be standing in the way of increased protection of the wetlands. But we also want to protect the wetlands, so.
Well, and that's, here's the kicker. Okay, because we're talking about protecting the wetlands, and now it says that they're repealing 27-04-01 District Regulation 3D. 3D, and that 3D is wetlands.
yes, so the current, so it's legal language. If I can I respond to that? It's legal language. We're saying we're deleting the existing language. We're cutting and pasting, basically. Cutting the existing language and pasting the new language that you have before you, that's up on the website into that section. Which is. So does that help explain it?
Well,
It's sort of like how the way the ordinances are written, is that you have to kind of provide this
That's
to.
because it removes this portion that says. Make sure I got this reading it correctly. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
so it says,
James.
one is wetland delineation,
Correct.
wetlands inventory maps indicate wetlands on site where site contains hydric soils.
Correct.
Or other area with predominance of wetland vegetation on the site. And then 1A. And then it goes to 1A and it says wetland boundaries shall be delineated through an on-site assessment which shall be conducted by professional soil scientists or others of demonstrated qualifications, such as a person shall certify that the methods used correctly reflect currently accepted technical concepts, including the presence of wetland vegetation, hydric soils, and other hydrologic indicators. The study must be approved by the governing body.
So that's what's being eliminated, right? That's the section that's being eliminated.
It's,
Okay, and that's the way I read this, is that what was being eliminated was really being replaced by D1, which is how the wetland area is defined.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, that's fine, because now they're given a new definition where you have to have a professional person come in and go through a whole series of tests to define the wetland area. If that's true, that's the way I originally had thought that was what this meant. So from this discussion, the only thing that I would feel comfortable recommending, since the question is, what's the distance of the margin? And how much can that be encroached on by the property owner? I would recommend to the supervisors that they clearly delineate the basis for establishing a wetland margin of 75 feet. What's the basis for that? At this point, we don't know. And what is the basis for a 40% encroachment?
Okay, I'd like to hear from everybody in that regard, respond to that.
I think that we understand that it's between 50 and 100 feet, 150 feet, nationally. So the Wetlands Protection Act is actually 100 feet. So we're less than 100 feet at 75. And then you start getting into your percentages and we're at 40 because that's what we're at right now. But again, that's something that I think that could be discussed maybe further at another time because it's obviously a much stronger place to be in. And then we can do our homework on what is the right number and what is the right percentage. Come back to the board with a strong case for maybe increasing it.
That makes sense to me.
I agree with that.
Okay, so we need a motion to that effect. You wanna make the motion? Okay, whatever you said before. that's-
Yes. No,
Did you
we'll
make
just,
the
I
motion?
did.
we'll do our research and then.
Okay. Brett, I wanna hear your,
Pat, point of order, someone has to second the motion.
Yeah.
For then, okay, discussion.
okay, thank you.
Okay, now discussion of the motion.
Discussion, is there any discussion? I think we've had a lot.
Yes.
Discussion, I think we've had it. Okay, got a second, all in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed?
Now you need an action item as to who is gonna do the research.
Well, the reason, but we have to first write the thing to the supervisor.
Right, exactly.
And do you have a good feel for that?
I shouldn't get involved. I can help you. I have to stay neutral. So if one of you would like to draft it up or and then I can, send it to Julia.
Does anyone volunteer to draft it?
I think it's a pretty, straightforward comment, actually, because it's just that we see the change to the ordinance. And as the environmental, advisory council, we're gonna do our research on the proposed or the current, delineation and come back with comments.
Okay, that, what we're saying is
Yeah.
that We don't have, we're not,
We've read
We're
it,
not-
we heard it, yeah, we read it, we heard it, we see what they have, we understand that this is better. And we'll do our homework and come back to them with,
that we see that the two issues are the 75% and 40%. Okay, I think I could draft it.
okay,
Okay.
great.
And when you say we will do our homework, then that means somebody on this committee needs
Well, I
to
think
do
it's,
something.
yeah, I think over the next couple of months, this is what we're gonna be working on. So,
But that's a real,
we'll be in a much better place to, present a case after we've done some work.
you're good, and you know, that is a project that has a conclusion and an outcome. And so it fits with what we said we were gonna do,
Absolutely.
so.
My concern, I think it's a great idea, Eric, but my concern is that the township has already said there's an expiration date on this, they're looking to move this through, and I don't know that they'll wait.
Yeah.
No, we're not asking them to wait.
No, I don't think that, we have any grounds to ask them to wait, honestly, just because, number one, we're a new, council and,
Right.
anything that we say would just be coming from our, feelings, we, and I.
Or your research.
And I'm one of those
Your
people,
research,
yeah, I'm one
my
of those people
feelings.
that, absolutely agree that should be 150 and 0. But, there's gonna be reasons why, and there's going to be, we'll have to give them a very good reason why it should be. And that's probably not, gonna be able to be done
And
in 14 minutes or whatever.
Right. But, so I guess my question is, if, from my understanding, they're gonna move on this before your recommendations are in, and I don't know if you would.
No.
You get that,
Once
right?
once the ordinance is in, again, you can, as the environmental advisory council, we will always be able to consult with the township committees. And, maybe, ask them to consider a change.
But there are time restrictions, I don't know if you're aware of this, once an ordinance is passed, you can only make, there are restrictions on how often and how soon you can revise it. So they may be stuck with something that is not acceptable to you. You know what I mean? If they pass it before you do your research and give
Well,
your,
yeah, I totally agree with you. I also understand that, the amount of, work, or damage to wetlands within that period of time. Would probably be minimal, not that I want there to be any, but, I don't think this ordinance is going to, prompt a bunch of homeowners to start. Coming in here and asking to build houses, so there's a very, I think that there's a risk, but it's a small one. We can hopefully. Well, hopefully you're not right.
Christine does raise a good point.
it seems like it's moving awfully quick. It took how many months? 6 months, 8 months to get the noise ordinance passed, and
Sure.
they're looking to do this in the same month.
It's valid, your comments are
It is,
valid, and
something's going on.
appreciated. My response to that would be that a text amendment is a much different thing than adopting a whole new chapter. These things tend to be fairly rapid, and this is not meant to, downplay what you're saying, but from my experience, these can be more rapid, whereas a whole new, like the lighting, those are fairly lengthy because there's a lot, but this is, and then on the timing of the recommendation, it's important to point out that letter should be sent ASAP. And I'm happy to,
I'll draw something and send it to you, and then you can.
that sounds good, Pat.
I'll try to do it tomorrow.
Thank you. No, well, as long as it's, like ASAP, not, no hard deadline tomorrow, I don't want to.
I need tomorrow.
One last question, just for clarification.
Sure.
So. Okay, I should have thought first. before opening my mouth.
You should have put your.
Okay, before I put my. Okay, okay, so. That's why it threw me off. So we're just getting rid of 401. Okay. 1D. 3D. Okay. 3D. And then all of this now takes the place of 3D.
Correct.
Okay, so the only thing that was repealed is that part of 3D, and now we're redefining 3D.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and our recommendation, I'm not gonna repeat it again, but if I need it, I'll call.
Okay.
Or what I'll do, I know, I'll draft it and send it to you all,
Sure.
and you can add to it, how's that?
I mean, and with your comment, there is a potential to maybe request that in the ordinance. That there is a potential to change those percentages and those numbers, you know, cause that could be a part of an ordinance.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
The part of the ordinance that the Environmental and Advisory Council is interested in. We would like to leave open for future consideration to change, because as environmental standards get stricter. Because of, you know, research and, you know, proof that it is doing damage. That's something that should be able to change with times, so.
What he said.
Exactly.
Okay,
All the time.
are we in agreement now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna send you all, would you do me a favor, you have their email addresses, right? Yeah, I wanna be sure I have.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to send it to me, I can send it along, if you want to do it that way. Yeah.
Well, I do want everybody, but you told me we have to be careful about talking about policy as a group, right?
Yeah, you can't deliberate or
We
discuss
can't
things outside of
so-
open meetings. You know, I think it'd be reasonable to just stick with the motion and just put something together to that effect and just, you know, send it out. Send it to me and I can send it out to everyone, FYI,
all right.
and I'll pass it along to Julia.
Okay, action item, understood. Huh, okay. Well, is that the end of the agenda? I want to be sure we've done everything we're supposed to do.
There is
My motion,
Huh?
change my motion from present to aye.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now I've lost the agenda.
The 8B is discuss Smithfield Township Sewer Authority, as Christine, as you were, this is kind of remember, I had deferred some public comment to this one, so we finally arrived at the early hour of 9 PM. And this is kind of important, and even though it's late, I wanted to at least have a few minutes just to discuss this one. So Pat, I know we discussed this,
What?
and you thought, and so I had mentioned to you that we actually have a municipal sewer plant that is actually governed by Smithfield Township, not, you know, for example, we, previously, in today's meeting, the Wellmink Water Company was brought up. That is actually a private wastewater plant. And so our township, there's no board meetings you can go to ask about it, for example. It's completely private. It's completely outside of the public hands. What they do in there, they only answer to DEP. And that's it, and their customers, and that's it. Whereas the sewer authority, I wanted to sort of introduce the information that Smithfield Township actually has its own wastewater plant, not to be confused with that one. Right, and so the Smithfield Township Sewer Authority is controlled by what's known as a municipal authority. And they have public meetings once a month at 1 PM here in this room. The next meeting will be Monday, June 10th at 1 PM right here in this room. The sewer authority's plant is located in the Lake Hall, around Lake Hall in the Sambo Creek watershed. I don't know exactly where it's located, but it's in that general vicinity of your municipality. So now that I've established sort of the fact that there is a Smithfield Township municipal wastewater plant governed by this municipal authority, I wanted to inform the EAC that you all have been invited to a tour this summer of that wastewater plant. And my job tonight is to get a count for everyone who can attend and what time and when. And there's plenty of parking spots. I just need to know exactly how many members of the council will be able to attend and what the best day, Monday through Friday, would be.
How could any of us miss going to?
Bring your notebooks.
Learn a little bit, it's educational.
So should we all just give dates that we would be available?
Oh, so I'm in.
First of all, if any of you don't wanna go, will you tell them no, you don't wanna go?
Yeah.
And the rest of us,
What's the times, just,
It's really, I just need to, I was tasked with, I was tasked with getting a day and a time that's best for everybody. So like, let's say it has to be Monday through Friday, well, because their engineer is gonna sort of explain everything to you all. And so is there like, are there any days during the week that nobody here can make? Like, it's like a Monday at 4 p.m., like totally off limits for, like, we just need, I need to try to figure out when people are available.
well, not for me, but, maybe on the same day that we're having our meeting. It's easier for me to be in town on a meeting day, so
Oh, okay, so maybe
maybe a Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Right.
that sounds, so at two,
Yeah,
okay, are there any objections to it being on a Tuesday?
Tuesday morning sounds good for me.
Afternoon's fine, yeah.
Okay, how about Tuesday afternoon,
Afternoon. Yeah.
afternoon,
Yeah,
at like after 2 p.m.?
sure.
How about late afternoon and we can all go have a bite to eat before our meeting?
Yeah, well, we couldn't discuss any business, right?
You would wanna
We
do
would
that.
just have to-
That's a very good point. It is
It was
purely,
sometime-
purely informational.
Yes.
There, yeah, that, we can go over that, this,
What is
Maybe-
what proposed date is this?
it's gonna be, well, we don't have a specific date, but I have determined that I'll bring back to their board Tuesday, 2 p.m. and after is best for the council. And,
and he was relating it to the.
our meeting dates.
Meeting day.
Yeah. or-
So-
oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
June, is what,
June 18th.
well, that's too soon, right?
They
Because-
said it has to be in the summer because the flow levels are lower, I guess.
How about July 18th? Huh? Well-
July.
Okay, July,
Tuesday,
okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's like.
Well, I thought we were doing something else on the 18th.
You want it to be on the same day as your meetings?
It would help, just
Okay.
so I can.
Okay.
Field
yeah,
trip.
sure.
Okay, I can find that date. Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
July would be the 15th.
Whereabouts is it?
Okay.
Do they have their address or? You're stuff by Lake Valhalla.
Okay, so there's a public comment, Pat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Public, well, I'm gonna ask for public comments.
I was just wondering, where is it located was my
So we
question.
want to just move into the public comment section.
Yes,
Oh, Lord.
any other comments from the public?
So, yeah,
You public out there, you wanna speak?
where exactly do you want?
Yes, I was just wondering, where is this Smithfield Sewer Authority? And because you're saying somewhere by Lake Valhalla, because I guess there's other developments that connect
Well,
Smithfield Sewer?
It's by Lake Valhalla in the Sambo Creek, in the little Sambo Creek watershed somewhere. I don't have an exact address. I just know that it's somewhere in that vicinity.
Is that one of the problems with Little Sambo Creek? That it's
in the upper one area.
Exactly.
It's in between number 1 and number 2 on the map.
Right between Little Symbol and.
We're children.
Is your comment, Christine?
Pretty quite
I don't make.
It is funny.
moving on.
We're children. I wonder how,
I mean,
Okay, any other comments? That was a good one.
oh my God.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, already?
Yes.
I vote to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hold on.
Okay.